Last night I decided to go back and read through some of my old journals and stuff, trying to remind myself of what God has promised me, trying to remind myself of what I've came through, just kind of trying to get a grasp of this new place that I'm at, meshing where I once was with where I am now, where I'm trying to go, all in one. And as I'm going through these journals, I was really starting to come to terms with just how confined, just how limited I was in my previous environment, in my previous circumstance. There was this particular journal I ended up running across, and in this journal I talked about this dream that I had. And I've talked about this dream before, but God has never gave me this revelation to the dream. In the dream, I was pregnant and the baby was full term. I was at the hospital in labor and delivery. The doctor said he was going to induce me with Pitocin, and if that didn't work, I'd have to have a C-section. I remember the doctor saying I was 37 weeks and that the baby was too big, no longer having any room to grow. I laid back on the bed crying because I was so afraid to have a C-section, and I started praying. I got the sense that the baby did come out on its own. Before I wrote this dream down in my journal, I was writing about feeling constrained, feeling confined, feeling pressed in the situation, in the circumstance, the environment, spiritual heaviness, spiritual agitation. And I wrote the definition of constrained, which means confined forcefully, to restrict the motion of, to be held back by, severely restricted in extent, activity, or opportunity, forced to do something against natural will, limitation, or restriction. And after I read that, it really made me take a step back and just really think on how much constraint I felt previously before God moved me, and just thinking on how upset, hurt, and essentially traumatized that I was trying to thrive, trying to grow in an environment where I have no room to grow. It really made me think back on how then I really thought I was so depressed. I thought that I was suicidal. I thought I just want to throw in the towel. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I've had enough of this purpose thing. I've had enough of this walk. I truly felt like I was imprisoned. I truly felt like I was in a cell. I would refer to my room as a cell because I felt like, dang, you tell me not to work. I don't have a car. I'm not on a bus line. I can't really move around how I want to. As I was reading in my journal, all these times of me saying, I'm so depressed, I'm depressed, God says to me, you were not depressed, you were compressed. The definition of compressed is flattened by pressure, squeezed or pressed, expressed, which means squeezed out in a shorter form. And when I seen that expressed in a shorter form, in the spirit, I heard squeezed out in a shorter period of time. And by that, I mean the imprisonment was causing our spirit, causing our anointing to be squeezed out in a shorter amount of time. And so then after I wrote that definition of constraint, this is what I wrote in the journal. It says, God said the other day, I am calling you out. There isn't any more room to grow here. This stage is complete. The doctor was concerned that the baby would go into distress. I am in distress. God has to intervene so that things don't become misaligned. God is the doctor. The promise is the baby. He sees the restrictions. He's coming to set me free. I heard him saying, liberation is here. He said a few weeks ago, vindication is here. It's a time to rebuild, not destroy. It's a time to heal, not hurt. It might be uncomfortable now, but it won't last. About 2 days ago now, I would say, God starts bringing this word back to my spirit, imprisonment. I just kept hearing that, imprisonment. And I was like, okay, God, so you bringing that word back? You want me to talk about imprisonment? You want me to make a video? Because that's what I felt in my spirit, He wanted me to make a video talking about imprisonment. And I'm like, okay, cool. But just really blind to the fact that God was also saying, you are no longer imprisoned. You have been set free. As I mentioned in my last video, talking about how the walk into the promise is not just like a skate in the park. You know, you don't just go skating into the promise. It comes with toiling. It comes with sacrifice. It comes with different lessons and trials. So although I knew I was not where I once was, I really never had time to fully sit down and sit in the fact that things are different. You're not fully there yet. You haven't fully seen the manifestation of these blessings, these promises, but things are different. You have been set free. The definition of imprisonment is a state of confinement, captivity, and or restriction. The definition of freedom is power or right to act, speak, think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. The definition of liberation is act of setting someone free from imprisonment, slavery, or oppression, freedom from limits on thoughts or behavior. And when I read that definition, I thought, wow, not only am I free, but I'm free spiritually, physically, as well as in my mind, my thoughts, my emotions. And the reason why I was having such a hard time sitting in the fact that, okay, I am now free, even though I know I'm waking up and I look around and I'm in a totally different atmosphere, in a totally different city, is because of my fear of feeling unsafe. I feel like for people who have experienced limitation in their lifetime, restraint, restriction in their lifetime, people who have been chained to their purpose. Listen, I remember I said one time on my Facebook, and I read it not too long ago in my Facebook memories. I said, when you are chosen, you don't have a choice. You do not have a choice. I've been chained to that purpose since a child, since as long as I can remember. I've been chained to the Lord. At this point, I'm enslaved. Ain't no getting away from the Lord. Even when I thought I was away, I didn't even realize, no, you look down, you got an ankle monitor on. He know exactly where you at, and you better get back to where you supposed to be at. And with spiritual confinement, with spiritual constraint, you then become constrained and confined in every single aspect in your life, because the enemy somehow weasels his way in and perverts that constraint. He perverts your view on that constraint, because really you're not constrained by the Lord, but you're in the Lord's hand. But as I was saying, people who have experienced that level of constraint, of restriction, of confinement in their lives, when you are confronted with freedom, it feels unsafe. The unknown feels unsafe. The what next feels unsafe. The uncertainty makes you anxious. It gives you crazy anxiety, because at least in the prison, I knew what to expect. At least in the jail cell, I knew what to expect. And as I'm kind of thinking about this in my personal time, I thought, wow, because I have an uncle and he did like 15, 16 years in prison, starting at a very young age. And I remember one time he was having a conversation with another family member, and he said, you know, I was so scared when I knew that I was getting ready to get out of prison. And he was like, you know, all that time I had been waiting to be out. I had been waiting for my sentence, my time to be up. But then once I finally knew I'm about to go home, I was scared and I wanted to stay. And I remember when I heard that man say that, I said, what? What? Because I've been in jail for 15 years, baby. No, I'm ready. Oh, I'm ready. I ain't been asleep. I've been pacing the floor. I'm ready. I even have an ex, and he said the same thing. He was in prison for a short amount of time, but I remember we were just having a conversation, and he was just very vulnerable with me in that conversation, seeing how he was like, depression fell over him when he was getting ready to be released from prison. But as I'm sitting back and I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wow, okay. I was sitting up there like, these men are crazy. Like, what you mean? But that became me. That became me. That fear of the unknown, that fear of the uncertainty caused so much anxiety, so much anxiousness that it was just like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Maybe I'm not ready. Like, God, you sure you want, like, you sure you want? I knew God was saying, get your stuff and go tomorrow. And I was just like, wait a minute now. Like, God, are you sure you saying tomorrow? Not tomorrow night, not tomorrow evening. You sure? You sure? Now, I have been sitting up all week, let alone the last, what, decade and a half, saying, God, I'm ready to move. God, do something different. I'm ready to be set free. I'm beating on the prison wall all day long. People trying to sleep. I'm beating on the prison wall. I'm pacing the floor. I'm hollering and screaming, get me out of here. Then the minute God said, okay, your sentence is up. Your time is up. I'm like, you sure you don't need me to be in lockdown just like another week? You sure? Like, you sure my sentence? Let me see. Let me read that paperwork. I don't know what they give people. I don't know what they show them. I don't know how they alert them, let them know, like, this your day, this when you're getting out. I'm just like, let me read over this paperwork one more time. You sure that this is my release date? Because I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I'm afraid. Because what comes after this? What does that new life even look like? How do I even thrive in a place of peace? Someone teach me how to thrive in a place of peace. Someone teach me how to thrive without shackles on. Someone teach me how to wake up every morning and feel joy, feel energized, feel refreshed. Limitation is something serious. Limitation will really limit your mindset, really limit your spirit, really limit your heart. And you will be thinking that, oh, wow, okay, so like things are getting better and I'm doing so much better and I'm just like thriving. And it's like, girl, no, you were not thriving. You were not thriving. Like, you did not have peace. I already had to know the beast that I'm talking about. Oh, I'm at peace. I'm happy. Like, I'm happy. No, you're not. You're not happy. It's limited. It's confined. It's restrained. You laughing, but even that little laugh is constrained. But it's something about when you reach a level of freedom, your laugh hits different. Your smile hits different. Your peace, your joy hits different. Your comfort hits different. The definition of liberty is power to do as one pleases, freedom from physical restraint, an act of going beyond normal limits. And when I read that, I was like, wow. Because when God liberates you, you have the opportunity to be happy, to be joyful, to maneuver in your anointing, to maneuver in your calling, in your purpose, beyond natural limitations. Another reason why I cannot fully sit in the fact that I was now free is the fact that I felt as though I was running to safety versus God liberating me. Because to be liberated, liberation is the act of someone setting you free. When you begin to experience liberation, it's not at your own hand. So I'm thinking, well, I'm running to safety. I'm running from somewhere. Like in my spirit, that's how I felt. Even though God had called me to this new place, even though God has been directing me, instructing me in this new place, I felt in my spirit I was running to safety. Because a spirit that's been so used to trauma loops, so used to fighting, so used to warring all the time, was now in a new environment, but there were still limitations, there were still restrictions on my thoughts. I had received physical liberation, but I was not allowing God to actually liberate me in my spirit and in my mind because I was too busy running. I was too busy feeling unsafe. And then it doesn't help when people ask you or question you regarding very practical things. Okay, well, you're in a new environment, so what are you going to do about working? And what are you going to do about this? And, well, instead of getting a house, you should get an apartment first. You know, you got to start off somewhere. You know, well, what are you going to do about daycare? And what are you going to do about this? And what are you going to do about that? And I'm just like, oh, no, 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 ma'am, because God is liberating me. God is liberating me. I'm not doing just a quick little move, a cute little move, a little like, yeah, you know, I'm just like ready to move, like, let's move. No, God is liberating me. Before I came out here, I would feel so much conviction trying to look up homes. I just wanted to see, you know, what do houses look like in Austin? Because, you know, every little city, different, you know, the housing aesthetic is different. And I was just curious, you know, like, what's going on? And I would just try to look up houses and I would feel so much conviction. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. You don't want me to look at these houses, cool. Then the day before I came out here, I said, well, you know, the wise thing to do would maybe be like look at some hotels, kind of see what the budget, the price range. When I say I literally could not even pull up that Google, like it was loading and I just had to click out of it. The conviction was so heavy. And I'm like, well, dang, God, here people are like, oh, well, like, have you looked into this? And like, maybe you should try that and da 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 da. And like, I'm like, no, like, God did not even want me to look at homes before I came out here. He did not even want me to look at hotels. Like, what harm would that have done for me to look up hotels? Just to know, like, okay, well, when I get there, like, what hotel am I going to stay in? Like, what is any, like, where's the harm in that? But now looking back, it's because, no, I'm liberating you. No, I just need you to trust me. No, I want to be the one who sets you free. And I don't want you to move a muscle. I don't want you to do anything. And so let that be confirmation for some of you who are waiting to move. When I moved with no money. No money. No money. When I say that God has been providing every step of the way, He's been doing just that. When it comes to these different things that God has told you to do, God has called you to do, and it's like, well, God, how am I going to do that? I don't even understand. How do I have the capacity to even do that? No, if God is calling you to do something, you're going to do just that. Either with what you got, or He's going to bring you what you need before or in the midst of. When God liberated the Israelites, all they had to do was walk. All they had to use was the two things they was born with. When they were between the Red Sea and the Egyptians, strong men, as the Bible put it, all they had to do was turn around and run. When God, whatever God calls you to, whatever God is liberating you from, all you got to do is turn around and run. And you're not running to safety. You're running to your promise. You're running because it's urgent. You're running because now it's time to move. You've been waiting to move. You've been waiting. And when I say move, I'm saying to see something get active. You've been waiting for activity. When it's time to move, it's going to be time to move for real. You've been waiting on activity, and that's just what you're going to see, a whole lot of activity. So you got to be prepared. You got to be making sure you're listening. You got to be making sure that you are ready to do exactly what God called you to do, scared or not, afraid or not. Because through liberation, God wants to show you His love. He wants to show you His compassion. He wants to show you who He is. He wants to show you that He truly takes care of you. He wants to show you that He can truly and will truly provide for you. And I just think that it's so amazing that God could take situations. I thought some of the very situations that I was just dealing with a week ago, just dealing with a year ago, dealing with 2 years ago, were utterly impossible for me to be free from. And truthfully, they were. Outside of God, they were. And I would get so tired of God saying, I'm going to liberate you. I'm going to liberate you. I'm going to vindicate you. And it got to the point where I was just so worn out with hearing it. I was just so worn out with, like, listen, I don't need the big red bows. I don't need the extra. I don't need the extra. At this point, I would take the mediocrity and be completely, utterly fine with it. Mediocrity is what I wanted from the jump. I never signed up for the extra. I never signed up for the blessings, and I never signed up for all that. I ain't asked you for all that. I did not take none of that to the throne. I was fine with mediocrity. But now, although my promises have not fully manifested, I can stand here and say now, it will all be worth it. You will be satisfied. If I feel this peace, this joy, this comfort in this place that I'm in right now, staying at a hotel, waiting for God to provide my home, I can imagine what it'll be like when I'm finally in that home, when I'm finally starting my nail business and doing this and doing that. You know, I just cannot even imagine. And it just makes me feel like, wow, God, when you said that you were going to reward me, when you said that you were going to give me a double portion, you meant that. And all along, that's what you truly had for me. Because sometimes we get so used to hearing all these big extravagant words that we just kind of feel like, okay, yeah, all right, cool, that sounds really nice. Not realizing, like, God ain't man. Man will sit up and, yeah, I'm finna go get a Bugatti. Yeah, I'm finna go cop a Porsche. Like, yeah, it's up. Yeah, I'm finna go get this new Gucci belt. Yeah, I'm finna. And it's just like, okay, all right, that's cool. That's okay. God ain't like men, though. If God says something, God will talk to you till you blue in the face about what he gonna do, how he gonna do it, and it's gonna be so great, and it's gonna be so cute, and you gonna be like, ooh, ooh, ah, ah. You gonna be jumping for joy, and just like, for me, when you finally, I'm in Austin in the hotel, and I'm just like, God is like, go to Target, and like, just like get some things that you would put in your house just to like activate the faith. And I'm like, okay. So I go get me 2 candles and some washcloths. And I just like, so you finna like, I'm finna move for real? Like, when God said he was gonna do something, that, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Who would have thought when God was sitting up making all these promises that he really meant that? But if you are in a situation where you feel like, I can no longer grow where I'm at, I can no longer breathe, I can no longer think, I can hardly function in this place where I'm at, I'm so worn out and I'm ready to throw in the towel, know that you are not depressed. You are only being compressed, and God is soon taking you from limitation to liberation.